The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, December 31st. It's the last day of 2025. Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. And today is it's National. I think this is appropriate. It's National Champagne Day.
I won't be popping champagne. I will be having an infused cocktail tonight. But yay! Sorry, champagne.
I think champagne is best for spraying on people personally.
Okay, I don't mind like a nice bottle, but honestly, I've switched to cannabis entirely. I really don't drink anymore, and I love a good wine.
Interesting. I've never been a fan of champagne, and if I do drink champagne, it has to have strawberries in it.
Jason, that's cute.
I'm so serious.
Jason, self-care. Treat yourself.
Yeah, I must. You know me. I'm bougie AF. You know what I'm saying, Shaun?
Yes, you spawn it up.
Yeah, I'm so about that life. So,
well, I hope everybody is about that life in 2026. I think we all took enough hits in 2025 to earn a little strawberry in your infused beverage or your champagne cocktail if you want.
Very cute.
Put a little strawberry in your drink tomorrow morning, friends.
Yes, you know what I'm saying? Little holiday cheer, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's see what else do we have cooking on today's list. We also have Make Up Your Mind Day. For all you indecisive ones out there, it's the last day of the year. You better figure out what you're going to do in 2026. Don't be a loser. You know what?
That's a personality trait.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do about that.
well, Dale, I think it's important that people, make these kind of decisions, because otherwise they just float around by the wayside. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The old saying, "Fish or cut bait," applies to a whole lot of people.
And it's also National No Interruptions Day. I'm not sure why that's on the last day of the year, but
I will self-admit, ADHD, I could work on that. I think we've all seen my episodes of the show. I can work on it a little bit.
Let's see what this says. It says, No Interruptions Day on the last work day of the year sets aside the day to get organized for the new year by cleaning up your workspace without interruptions.
Get the hell out of here. If you're working today, what? That's screw that No Interruptions Day.
We're working today. I'm going to be working today. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be doing
This is a joy. This is a joy. I feel like this is a joy to do.
That's fair.
Bitching about politics fair. And weed. I actually did just have a work meeting just literally just 5 minutes ago. But it doesn't, I don't know. Some days weed feels like it's work and some days it's not. And it's
some
fun.
Days it feels like some work. Some days you don't.
Some days you feel like a nut.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you don't.
Some days you are nuts.
Like one, right?
Yeah, some days you are nuts. Yeah, how about that? Yes. It's also, now this one I'm confused about, you guys. They say that it is also today is Leap Second Time Adjustment Day.
What?
Is that like if you didn't adjust well to
I'm not sure, but it's a national day. I'm very confused by it. Leap Second Time Adjustment Day is listed as an observance title only. Some years scientists do not make adjustments, but if they do, then it's done on either June 30th or December 31st.
Apparently they didn't do one this year. That's
still weird. It's still super, super weird. I don't even remember that being in the last day of the year. So I think that's just something new. Maybe something that Sleepy Joe Biden implemented because he always forgets to set his clocks back.
Yeah, it sounds like a couple drunks coming up with, let's name another day.
Yeah. It sounds. I'm with you, Dale. It sounds really dumb.
It's something about the atomic time and rotation being a little bit off. But I'm still stuck on OG Grandma was giving us tips on how to treat yourself. And first tip, besides the strawberry and the champagne, is the ice cubes in the bong. Of course. Well, you got to have ice cubes in your bong. Otherwise, you know what I mean? Otherwise, this is going to be hard. It's like using a bong with no water. It's just harsh. Yeah, see, exactly. See that same face, Shaun, that same face. If you don't have ice cubes in there, you have the same face. Same face. Yeah. Have y'all ever left have you ever left it out in the summer and then hit it when the water was hot? It's the grossest thing in the world. Sometimes you're working in the garden, you're not paying attention, you go hit it, and then it's hot water in this Texas sun.
Man, that's first
world. That's why
problems.
I like my blunts in the summertime.
Nasty bong water.
I like my summer blunts.
Yeah, exactly, Dale. It's a hot mess going on. Definitely a hot mess going on. And of course, it is also New Year's Eve, everybody. Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Look at that. We made it. We made it through 2025. We're going to go into 2026. And we are so lucky because we have the greatest president in America that we've ever had.
Says some. According to some opinions.
According to some opinions. That was cute. Anyways. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high at noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And Dale, we're going to start off with a California story. Because
I'm sorry.
Me too.
Yeah, these California regulators, they propose updated cannabis cultivation rules and new sanitation standards because you guys don't like to wash your hands after you come out of the bathroom. And it opens for public comment. California's Department of Cannabis Control has released a new notice detailing proposed modifications to its ongoing rulemaking process focused on cannabis cultivation regulations and the creation of statewide minimum sanitation standards. The updated proposal reflects changes made after earlier public hearings and comment periods and is now open for another round of public input. According to the department, the latest modifications continue a broader effort to streamline cultivation rules, clarify track and trace requirements, because we know that's going to probably get thrown out the window, and address contamination risks tied to unsanitary handling of cannabis. One of the most significant elements of the proposal is the establishment of uniform sanitation standards that would apply to all licenses involved in cultivating, processing, or handling unpackaged cannabis. These standards cover areas such as tool and equipment cleaning, container sanitation, hand washing, or glove use, and restrictions on animals in processing and handling areas. Yeah, there's no animals in the processing areas, you guys, you know what I mean, whether it's a service animal or not. The proposal also refines how the state treats illegal pesticide possession. Under the revised language, cannabis or cannabis products would be considered held under unsanitary conditions if unlawful pesticide products are present on a licensed premises, and the department says this approach better aligns with existing state pesticide law while closing potential loopholes that could allow contaminated cannabis to move through the supply chain before enforcement action occurs. Notably, the rule would allow regulators to treat cannabis held at other premises under the same ownership as unsanitary in certain circumstances. And in addition to sanitation standards, the broader cultivation updates include changes to canopy definitions, clarifications of harvest batch tracking and labeling requirements, and adjustments to nursery and propagation rules, and the removal of relocation of some previously proposed provisions related to energy reporting and pest management plans. The department is accepting written public comments on the modified regulatory text through January 14th of 2026. After the comment period closes, the agency will review and respond to feedback before deciding whether to adopt the regulations in final form. Well, we shall see what happens in California. You're always such a hot mess. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. I think this is because they're not washing their hands after they come out of the bathroom, Dale.
Well, it's like they should make up rules about not having minors or undocumented workers on farms.
Oh, yeah.
They have those, don't they?
Man.
Just don't fucking enforce them.
Right?
I am so fed up with this state. Couple of big ones they need to amend is the local control and reduce this ridiculous 15% tax.
Yeah.
Down to closer to, what alcohol is. Tell them they're just playing games here. These are games they're playing.
That's very, very true. Very true. What do you got to say, Shaun?
Oh, I mean, I hear you. Having worked for the man, having worked for the man for a little stint of time, I get having some of the regulations.
Easy there.
Not everybody, I know, right?
A cat piss, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
I went to the farm and I bought the last bits of cat piss that was left, and it was so good. I was worried they didn't have any, but now I got Banana Daddy, so I'm excited.
Shaun has a new daddy.
I saw in the 70s, I think.
Dude, I am really lucking out over here. I am very blessed. If anything happens with DSHS, I'm gonna be okay. I don't know about. Well, everyone should probably be fine. We'll figure out another way. We always do. As far as this one, bad pesticides, I'm okay with us having some regulation. As far as now, to Dale's point, whether it's enforced is a whole nother story. You can write all the good rules you want, but if you have no means of actually supervising this whole thing, this whole shit show, then what are you going to do?
I think a lot of it's going to be selective enforcement.
Sanitation.
A lot of it's going to be selective enforcement because they obviously don't enforce all of these rules that they currently have on the books on everyone. They just selectively enforce.
I agree with you, and I do think that's an issue that they choose who they want to target and when they want to enforce, and other people seem to have immunity from that. But at the same note, I can't piss and moan too much about creating some sensible regulations, at least as guidelines, because even if they're not out there enforcing it, having the guideline, don't use the cancer causing pesticides in the materials people are smoking. You think that things are common sense, but like you said, Jason, not everybody's out there washing their hands after they use the bathroom. So,
but it kills all the powder mold, Shaun. It kills all the powder mold.
Oh God, we got to do better, guys. We got to do better. I tell you what.
You got to have your service animal with you to trim flower. Perhaps there's another position for you in the business, because if you got to wash your hands and wear protective gear, and then you bring an animal. My ex-wife used to bring dogs into the grow house all the time, and we get spider mites. Like, can you keep them out of there? And it just didn't sink in. Like, I like taking the dog. Yeah, but I don't like having to clean spider mites off my plants.
Exactly.
And you can have a service animal. Well, you can have it to an extent, but if it interferes with the execution of your duty and the performance of the job, which it would, because it would contaminate the product.
Shaun,
well, I had a service dog. I had an Alaskan Malamute who was my service dog, and I love that rule, and I totally respect it. At the same time, you can't.
Not at work. Not at work. Don't have a job. Don't have a job then.
Places, like if you're a person who has to bring your service dog to wherever you go, probably working in a grow house, not the best space for you. It can't impede with the execution of your actual job. Otherwise, that's a fireable offense. They're not firing you for the service dog. They're firing you for your inability to do your job to the correct standard. So I get
that was a good spin.
I'm a veteran with PTSD, and I really cared about the rules with service dogs. I know a lot of people out in LA have like these service dogs, llamas, tigers, whatever, that they want to take on the airplane. Yeah, service llama. Yeah, that they want to take with them everywhere. And that becomes like, it really pisses me off when we have actual people who have real service animals who are trained and they really do need them. And then when you have a bunch of morons who are using that to just take their untrained dogs everywhere. Like, I know it's not a service dog, because if it's jumping around and being all over the place and not obeying the rules, that is not a trained service dog. It's very obvious. You're just using a system that's meant for others to benefit yourself selfishly. And that's not anxiety. That's just called being an asshole. Like, America's, come on, we got a new year and you need to get a grip. But yeah, the service animals, and you can't have contamination like that. It's pretty ridiculous. I'm all for the service dogs, but this is stupid.
You know, leave your service dogs in the car. Okay, let them service your car.
Switch to the marketing. Be in marketing. To make it a mascot. Take it out on runs. Like,
if you want to have a service animal in a cultivation facility or manufacturing facility or whatnot, you might as well just be a social media influencer and stay the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Practice gratitude and manifest abundance.
Maybe.
California has some very odd employment rules.
Yeah.
If you're going to realistically have a service dog, then you have to have a disability on paper that you can bring to your employer and say, this is what my psychiatrist or my psychologist, whoever, has done for me. And you go, okay, but we can't have you growing weed, or you can't have you where you're trimming it, you're touching the raw plant. I'm sorry, we'll find something else for you. And, you know, I've had to butt heads with some of these law firms that are soliciting, oh, your employer mistreated you. Yeah.
You know what they should do, Dale? They should not work for the cannabis company. They should work for the security company, and then they can do roaming patrols around the property with their service animal. That's the only job that they would have to do.
Those dogs aren't trained to do security. They're trained to like respond to seizures.
Most of the people that do security aren't trained to do security either, Shaun. They're just standing there. They're just lumps on a log.
That is fair. That's fair. I was thinking about.
But you got to have.
This is why I like hiring my veterans for security, and that's why I get why some folks, like, we're all, you know, the glass house elephant in the room. Talking about, you know, I don't need to elaborate. We'll see who they enforce on and who they don't enforce on.
I'm still waiting to see what happens to them when you get caught with minors and undocumented workers. It's like, okay, I know people who lost their licenses for a lot less than that. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Exactly.
And why?
Exactly.
That's what they don't want to answer, is why.
They don't want to answer why. And on that, we're going to tell you why. We're going to roll into our first commercial, and we're going to be right back.
The only evidence they have is the evidence you give them.
Oh, man. Evidence. Well, I got some other evidence that just popped up, you guys, because a Florida senator files a bill to expand medical marijuana supply limits and ease renewal requirements. You guys, this might be some good news. Possibly. Maybe. We'll see. A Florida lawmaker filed legislation today that would make several targeted changes to the state's medical marijuana program, including allowing larger supplies to be authorized, reducing how often patients must be reevaluated by physicians, and waiving medical marijuana ID card fees for honorably discharged veterans. The proposal, Senate Bill 1032, was filed today by State Senator Alexis Calatard a Republican, and would amend multiple.
What kind of
Calatayud. I probably added the R because, she's a Republican, and would amend multiple provisions of Florida's medical marijuana statute. One of the most significant changes would allow qualified physicians to issue certifications covering up to a 70-day supply of marijuana in a single order, replacing the current 35-day cap. The bill would also give physicians the ability to request exemptions for higher daily dosage limits and possession limits for marijuana in smokable form, provided specific documentation is submitted electronically to the Department of Health. Under the legislation, physicians would still be required to justify any increase by detailing the patient's medical condition, dosage needs, and how the higher amount would benefit treatment. The Department of Health would be required to approve or deny such requests within 14 days, with automatic approval if the agency fails to act within that time frame. The bill would also change how often patients must be evaluated to maintain their certification. Instead of annual in-person visits, physicians would be required to evaluate patients at least once every 210 days, with telehealth evaluations allowed under existing law, and physicians would also be required to document whether patients experience adverse drug interactions or reduced use of other controlled substances. Additional provisions would extend the validity of medical marijuana identification cards from 1 year to 2 years and waive all identification card fees for honorably discharged veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, including Space Force. If enacted, the legislation would take effect on July 1st of 2026. Right in time for the 4th of July for our veterans. And what do y'all got to say about this? I think this is great news. Hopefully this can go through. It's a Republican bill and with a Republican legislature, so it has high chances of being able to make it through that gauntlet.
When I hear these things, I hate the role I feel compelled to play because...
Are you going to be a naysayer?
Yeah. I get that it's progress in some senses of the word, but it is so... I can't imagine, and this is why I don't want to do the teacup program either, or really any... Veterans have a real... It's funny because they use veterans often to push this medical cannabis agenda, and medical or medicinal cannabis, it has medicinal benefits, and veterans 100% stand behind that. I don't think all veterans are standing behind these very limited medical programs, though, where they are really supervised, like the level of direct supervision of your consumption. There's not like a set amount of milligrams that I need to consume every day to manage my symptoms.
But they're raising it.
If something happens and my symptoms flare up, or I have multiple symptoms from multiple issues, like I have autoimmune issues and I have PTSD and I also have neurological, the wires got fried because of the chemicals I was exposed to while I was overseas. So I have neuropathy in my hands and feet, and I got some real crazy migraines. It looks like a stroke. There's no way for me, and my docs couldn't figure this shit out. You want to know who figured it out? I figured it out. I figured it out with my plug using weed, and no one was supervising my consumption. So as a grown adult, I really don't need my doctor to be supervising my consumption, especially because I try to avoid the VA and the docs at all costs possible. Do you know how much they gaslight you when you're in service? We got veterans who are missing fucking limbs being denied disability.
Easy
and I'm sorry, you got me going. We got veterans missing limbs who are being denied their disability that served in your wars, and now you want to control how much cannabis they can consume through your sham medical programs, which are really, if anything happens in Florida, sometimes when anything happens in Florida, it looks to me like it's always a deal for True Leave. I hate to be the negative lady on this, but it astounds me, even as a Republican bill, if you're a Republican, you should stand for individual rights and your individual liberty to choose. Weren't the Republicans all about that big gulp lawsuit and the sugar and your ability to consume whatever the fuck you wanted because it was your body, your choice? And so can we not also let the veterans decide what they're going to consume when it comes to medicinal cannabis? We're talking about a plant. It's like we pharmaceuticalized spinach. You know, it's insane to me. So yes, is it progress? Yes, it's progress in this freaking black brave new world we're living in. Like, yeah, sure. It's progress.
Well,
it sounds like a cut to me.
This whole argument's ridiculous. And I'm going to go way back to when I first got into this. And I was working with Todd Mickeria and his Society of Cannabis Clinicians. I was their attorney. I went and met with the medical board, figure out how do we do this, and you leave us the fuck alone, okay? And what we agreed was that if you see them once a year, like you're required to do for prescribing narcotics, they would be okay with that. But then you've got to have established some medical need for it. Okay? That's what the physician's obligation was if you're prescribing drugs. We agreed, okay, we'll do that if you leave us alone. Problem back then and we have now is this is so individualistic. And even the people who prescribe this or recommend this on a regular basis have to sit down and work with the patient to figure out what's the form you're using it in, how much you're using it, what's the method of administration, how does it affect you? And then it's nonsensical to think you're going to convince some state agency with their head 4 foot up their ass that, oh, we need someone to have more weed. Okay? And it's going to, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks. Someone needs more weed and they can't get it from the government sanctioned. They'll call their buddy and meet him around the corner.
I'm with that.
It's nonsensical. And Todd finally got to the point where it's like, look, if somebody calls me and says, oh, my back hurts, I'll tell them, take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning. Why in the hell is this any different? Well, and at this point, it's 2026 tomorrow, and we still are playing these stupid games. Oh, if we let people have too much marijuana, the whole system's going to fall apart. No. If I grow my plants outside, I'm going to probably have 10, 15 pounds of this shit.
Well, in all fairness, Dale, yesterday it was the sky was falling over here. You know what I'm saying? Just so you know. It was pretty rainy.
You know what also ticks me off about this is if you really want to take the whole medical route and we want to look at the medicinal benefits of this, what I'm not seeing is medical producers producing the best product. I'm not seeing them turning out the best flower in the best soil under the best conditions. You can't do that when you're trying to operate at such a massive scale. The whole model of being a massive medical operator is a pharmaceutical model. And frankly, it doesn't work in cannabis. We should have tried a different approach. When we had the caregivers and the home growers who were providing medicine to people, we had much better quality product. We didn't have all of these siphons of products where, THC was glorified because we thought everyone was chasing percentages, not because it actually indicated better quality of flower. And if these medical operators were truly providing the best of the best in terms of quality, it would be a different story. But because they're so interested in scalability, quality inevitably suffers and they're not producing the best. So I don't want to hear it. They're not growing the best plants. You can grow the best medical quality cannabis in your own garden. And that's why every freaking state with a medical program should have home grow.
This is all the allopathic pharmaceutical medical model. Okay, we look into PDR, it says, oh, for this condition, you start at this level and then you work up. Okay. In the cannabis industry, unless you have the single molecule product, you're going to start at 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams or 100 milligrams, whatever, and it's only a single molecule, the rest of it just blows their mind. They're trying to stick this round peg into a square hole. Like, it doesn't fit. The hell is wrong with you?
I can't believe
we keep having these arguments. I've been in front of juries trying to explain to juries, and more than that, explain to dumb fuck prosecutors and ignorant judges that you cannot pick a number out of your hat and say, this is where we're going to take you to and keep you there because it's going to work, because it doesn't do that. If you're using it by smoking it, titration, your brain tells you I've had enough, will stop. Well, at the end of a week or a month or 6 months, how much you're using and average that out, you can do that. But the next time you get something that's not quite as good a product, as Shaun was alluding to, now you got to use more. Okay, it just doesn't fit the model, and they're trying to cram it into a medical model where I prescribe you, 10 milligrams of tetracycline or 5 milligrams of morphine or whatever, and we know the predicted effect. That doesn't exist. This is not a medical model that you can put into this box. We lost that at the end of the 1800s when they went to the single model pharmacy we have right now. And we just don't know what to do with that, because this is naturopathic medicine. And most allopaths, that makes their butt pucker when you talk about that, because the government doesn't like it. The pharmacies don't like it. All the goodies that come with medicine is that you get on board the pharmacy train here and do what we want you to do. Can't explain to the physician how to administer this and titrate other than start low, go slow, and figure out where they are. Okay. And that defies the medical model. This stuff just irritates me. The sky didn't fall when people started legally smoking pot. So why are we still having these arguments?
And I hear you, Jason. It is a positive story. It is good that a Republican has put forward some form of expansion. It's just that it is too little for where we are right now, especially considering the federal conversation that's being had.
All right. Well, here's where I'm trying. Here's where I'm at on this. I can't believe you guys are all poo-pooing on this, because all of the talking points that you guys are bringing up made sense at the beginning of Florida's legislation. This stuff has already been enacted and it's already in place. And this article is all about increasing those numbers, because they've seen that they need to increase this thing and offer those types of increases. So overall, this is good. They're not going to just go and eliminate the stuff. Do
you earnestly believe that is done out of the goodness of their heart, or do you think that's because medical license operators are telling them what's hurting their profit margins and trying to let them know that folks aren't buying from the medical market? They're buying from the underground market or the hemp market.
I think they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, Shaun. I totally do.
I think that's so sweet.
They're totally doing this out of the goodness of the heart. They have a number of veterans in their district that are reaching out and saying, hey, you know what? It's not enough, and we shouldn't be having to pay for this. And you know what? I wish that they would have taken it a step further, a little bit. And I'm glad that they're saying that the veterans don't have to renew their card and don't have to pay for their card. But I think also people that have conditions that are going to be with them for their entire life, that they're never going to get rid of, that there is no cure for. I don't see any reason why those people should have to renew. You know what I mean? I could see going and getting your picture retaken every, 4 years or 5 years, kind of like a DMV with your driver's license.
Why are the patients paying for a card at all? In what other world are we paying to be prescribed pharmaceuticals? It feels like
it's not a pharmaceutical though, Shaun. It's not Schedule 3 yet.
But it's the same idea.
Saying, it's not Schedule 3 yet.
And we're bringing it. It's the same idea. No one should be paying for the ability to access a plant that you physiologically need and have an endogenous cannabinoid
You're not paying for access to the plant, Shaun. What you're paying for is no. Hold on, let me finish. What you are paying for is for your legal defense to be able to say that is what the reason that you're using it in case that you're caught by law enforcement or whatnot. That's what you're paying for.
Exactly. That's what you're paying for.
Is for your medical defense.
To not be victimized by a
let me tell you something.
Justice system.
Paying for a card
that should set off the alarms.
Paying for a card.
Call a spade a spade.
Dale, I think Dale's going to be with me on this. Hold on, Shaun. I think Dale's going to be with me on this, because paying for a medical card is way, way cheaper than paying an hourly rate for any criminal defense lawyer.
We shouldn't be criminalized, and shouldn't be paying for access to your own medicine. The healthcare system is so beyond fucked.
Am I right though, Dale?
You tell us, Dale. You tell us.
Wish in one hand and shit in the other, and I'll tell you, weed is still illegal. Okay, there's no place in this country where you can just do whatever you want with weed, unless you're LB Musica. Okay, it's not a reality. And Molly and I had to go in front of juries. Chris Conrad did the same thing. Other experts out there convinced the jury that this poor bastard in a wheelchair needed those 6 plants he had in his backyard. Like, this is ridiculous, and here we still are. But it affords you a way to stay out of the system that grabbed my ass and, wrung me out for 5 years. So I continue to applaud moving forward to give these defenses, but it should not have ever been made illegal. I think we all agree on that, but it is. And we've spent since 1970, when this law was passed, we're dealing with right now, trying to undo it. And now we're in I think Trump just kind of threw it all up in the air and go, okay, we're going to figure this out. We got hemp, we got Schedule 3, we got now a descheduling commission coming.
We got a whole plan.
This stuff is going to be in a whirlwind. And, from my perspective, it should not be in the allopathic, pharmaceutically driven industry. It should be out closer to where alcohol is. Stop, sticking a microscope up some poor bastard's ass because he smokes weed. Leave him alone. And I'm also happy to see anything good happening for the vets, because I was diagnosed with PTSD from some of the things I did when I was in the military. And I can tell you it works, and it gets people to have sleep without these intrusive thoughts. It begins unraveling the process. It can work on your anxiety and tension, all this stuff. Damn it, it works. I don't need 500 fucking studies to tell me it works. I sat with veterans day after day and looked them in the eye and saw the relief in their face. We should not have to be doing this, but we do. And Jason, you hit on it. The reason Molly and I jumped into this is because, they came after us. Like, you're going to come after us. We're going to do everything we can to keep people out of trouble here until you actually lock the door on us, which they did. We do it again. It's the right thing to do. That's what's missing here. The right thing to do is to look out for people, because this plant is not causing death and destruction. Just stop it. Both sides still treat it like, oh, it's heroin or it's fentanyl. No, it's not. Stop. And we pump up naturopathic medicine, go back to whole plants, what Harvey Kellogg worked on with nutrition and stress and clean air. I mean, can we go back to that?
Yeah, that's called preventative medicine. But people don't make money if we learn how to prevent issues before they even start. Cannabis should be in a nutraceutical preventative medicine, and cannabis includes marijuana and hemp. For folks who are having that argument, the veterans in Texas have chosen very clearly. We have not really purchased from our teacup program. Don't really trust them since they lobbied against hemp. And hemp, it is cannabis. THCA was made. It was made legal through a legal definition that happened here in Texas. They wrote their own specific laws locally that happened to open up a free hemp market for us. And it has done very well. The veterans largely support it. And that's because you get open, unfettered access to locally grown products, and you can get products across state lines and figure out how to do this the right way. I was listening to a report earlier today on cattle ranching in the United States, the deal with beef. And Argentina.
Yeah.
Well, but our ranchers are really bleeding right now,
I love
Jason,
beef.
Financially.
Where's
And
the beef?
it's just like our cannabis producers. You can get really good stuff local from your butcher. You can get really good stuff local from your grow. And yes, we do need to open up interstate commerce to make sure that the markets can stay supplied when it comes to retail stores, because the demand is so high. Why is the demand so high? Is it because our food and pharmaceutical industries were prioritizing profits over preventative health care and preventative health resources, food and nutrition? Was it because we over prioritize profitability? I'm a capitalist just like anybody else.
Oh boy.
But there comes a point where you can't poison your market. They won't be alive to buy from you in the future, or they'll just stop believing in your bullshit.
Tell that to the cartels
you can market, and you can do the best marketing and PR in the world. But at the end of the day, if you keep up with your lies, folks are going to call you out on it, and the tides are going to change. And I think we're starting to experience that right now. And that's why we're in the middle of this very weird policy sweep where it can go one of two ways. We can create an open market, because you're right, Dale. Marijuana is federally illegal. Hemp is a different story. Yeah. Are we changing? But we're changing definitions. And part of the language, they're very good about being ambiguous enough not to show the full hand. And the addressing full spectrum hemp was a lifeline for the hemp industry right now, but it won't be if we were addressing full spectrum hemp to try to capture it under the same medical umbrellas and exclude everyone from participating, trying to force everyone into these pockets, these medical channels that we have seen time and time again. If you don't serve the people and you only serve your profits, they fail over and over, and they can't combat the illicit market. We have to be smart about this. We're going to end up just like any other agriculture economy in the United States, just like our cattle ranchers, just like our food producers. They are struggling. The farmland is drying up. The resources are sparse.
You know what that means, Shaun?
And other folks are making a lot more money off of us than we are producing in our own nation. We have got to come to Jesus on this.
Shaun, that basically segues into your story, because that just means that we're all going to be owned by China.
And my story.
Hold on. We're gonna roll into Dale first. Hold on, Shaun. We're gonna roll into Dale first.
Hey, I do want y'all to know it will not be a xenophobic story, though, Jason.
Whatever. It's China. And we are going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. Dale has been an attorney since the Reagan administration. He has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, and for the last 25 years, he specialized in cannabis law. He served a 5-year federal prison sentence for helping medical marijuana patients and managed to save his lost license. He's blunt. He doesn't smoke them because they're ratchet. They're nasty, Shaun. But he is honest, and he's unconcerned with public opinions, your opinion, and anyone else that wants to identify in any way's opinion. And he'll show you how he can defy gravity like a superhero and by pissing up a rope. That's right. It is your favorite Tio Loco. And you can now find him at his own law office at the law office of none other than Dale Schafer.
Good morning, everybody. Happy last day of the year. My story this morning for Jason, it's your favorite Tio Loco.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Got to be able to laugh at yourself, dude, or you'll never live to be as old as me.
Oh, I do it every day.
Okay. My story this morning comes out of Marijuana Moment, and it was the 26th, so it's a couple days ago. It was by Aaron Houston. And the headline is, Medical Marijuana Use is Prevalent Among People with Disabilities, and it helps treat pain, new federally funded study shows. And with some of these headlines, you go, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, because this has been known for quite some time. I read this story, and it struck me a couple of things here. First of all, it's 2,000 people they talk to, and they call them primarily females, college educated, things like that.
Karens.
Okay, well,
just call them Karens.
Yeah, well, we could go there because I know some college educated women who aren't Karens, but and there was 2,000 of them, and they found that 20% reported that they were regular users of cannabis for the disabilities. Now, this also comes with some cautions that this is a small study. It may be skewed a bit. Could be some inherent bias. It's self-reported. Be careful, generalizing about this. But that's what we do nowadays. So what the hell? Let's throw it in. What Molly and I found early, and this is back in 1999, 2000, was that everybody who had pain did better with cannabis. They were able to drop their opioid use, some of them completely, or decrease it. We had people with other types of problems like seizures that were, reducing their seizures, being able to control them better. Some of them make them go away altogether. One of the best antiemetics in the whole world. So if you're taking some medication that makes you puke or takes away your appetite, it's very good for that. This is not even rocket science. So when people who have disabilities, and I guess this is the good news, is that people who have disabilities are understanding that there are medical benefits for this, that if you live in a state where it's legal, you can in fact get your hands on it. The price of it is a whole different story. Sometimes the black market is, cheaper than, in fact, most time the black market's cheaper than the legitimate market, but you can get your hands on it. And what they're figuring out here is that most of them, I would assume, have taken pharmaceuticals. That's what our experience was. So when you start taking pharmaceuticals and the side effects from them, and you start using cannabis and the side effects from cannabis, and you compare them, it's like there is no comparison. When you take opioids for pain medicine, you get constipated. You don't get constipated taking weed. Smoking weed does not stuff you up. And there's so many other of these consequences and side effects from taking pharmaceuticals. people just find unappealing, and some of them just can't tolerate them anymore. So it's good to see that 20% of self-reported disabled people are regularly using this. I suspect the number is higher than that. That's my own suspicion based upon my experience with the plant and people who have these conditions. But it's also good to see they're turning to it. This is a federally funded study, which is good news. And if it ever goes out of Schedule 1 or probably Schedule 2, it'll be easier to research it and find more of this. But this is common sense. And I would suspect that if we were to go back to the end of the 1800s when you could get heroin from Sears and Roebuck catalog, Park Davis sold, their favorite, Indian hemp or American cannabis product. You took it for whatever you wanted. It was fairly addicting. And when you did get addicted, you could stop fairly easily. It worked. People were using this stuff. Okay? And we weren't having a problem with marijuana till the Mexican Civil War, and they were crossing the borders, and then we had to call it that, and it's after the brown people, and it turned into, prohibition goes away. Now we got to find something else to chase. Oh God, there's this stuff called marijuana. It's going to, ruin your children. It's all been 100+ years of bullshit, not based on any facts. Okay, so this is just more evidence that I would say should be thrown into the hopper. That traditional medicine should be taught about this. They should understand it not from the standpoint of, oh, I'm dealing with someone who's using illegal drugs, but someone who's found a way to deal with their symptoms and try to work with them. But my experience with the allopathic community is they're going to be hard pressed to do that because the insurance companies don't pay for it. And as much as doctors used to be altruistic, I think that ship sailed a long time ago. Now, I'm going to throw this back at you for discussion because, Shaun, I know that you've seen this work with veterans you work with. I've seen it work. I mean, we had like 15,000 patients. So Wally and I put our eyes on a whole lot of people and talked to them about how this works for them. And I don't myself understand how you can have any sense of empathy to human beings and still want to throw them in prison for doing this. I'm going to throw it back to you and what do you have to say?
Well, Dale, we did cover a story yesterday in regards with the fact that that Medicare is going to cover CBD, and they expect that to go into effect in April of this year, to where it will be covered for CBD products. I believe it's like $500 per person per month. In regards with CBD products, I think that's a huge step in the right direction, and I'm willing to bet that it probably goes into effect on 4/20, since they said that it's going to go into effect in April. Just saying. Just government likes to work like
Wait,
that sometimes.
Did they say $500 a month? Because I thought it was $500 a year.
I think it's $500 a month. I don't think it's $500 a year.
That's a lot.
We'll double check. Hey, if it's $500 a month, I'll change my tune. The last thing I heard was Dr. Oz had rumored it to be $500 a year, but if we have a full story, I'll double check it.
We'll follow up on that. We want to make sure that we are delivering actual factual information consistently to you guys. So it is possible I could be wrong. It could be a year, but I think I just don't see how $500 a year would make sense for. Yeah,
that was my feedback. I was like, okay, thank you for the nice PR statement. That's a load of bullshit. $500 a year, there's no way. And covering $500 in cannabis a month. When they
CBD, Shaun, not cannabis, CBD.
It's still CBD is cannabis, guys. I gotta tell you. Do you guys want me to bust out the molecule chart? I have one. I have a molecule chart. CBD is cannabis. It's in a different group. I'm gonna make a freaking Schoolhouse Rock song, and I'm gonna work with Nate on it. He does Teaching Bud. We'll work on something.
I love Schoolhouse Rock.
I don't see the federal government saying $500 a month to any kind of medical program when they're cutting benefits right now. So I definitely want to double check those numbers. But if they are, then
Brian Dombrowski in the chat, he says $500 a year would still be a gummy a day.
That's still terrible, though. Honestly,
they're just saying.
I think to Dale's story, I don't want to, I am happy that the research is being done and it does make sense. The demographics that they're studying, reporting that this use helps. I do want to say it helps you manage your symptoms. One misnomer I'm a little bit worried about is the federal government wanting to make claims, especially when it comes to psilocybin and other psychedelics, that folks will be cured. And this will give them a pathway to cut so many benefits because they're going to claim people are cured of their mental health issues. And I will say, I have complex PTSD. I'm not ashamed of just whatever. I have also disassociation. So it's really easy for me to be hella transparent and just be very honest. So it's also the disassociation, I will say, has given me an edge as far as business, because you can really pull yourself out of feeling, the personalness of it.
Exactly.
Even though I do
that all the time.
It helps with the mediation. On that note,
so good at that.
There's some things when you have these different, there's a level of neurodivergence that we all have, where we have a set of gifts or skill sets that we can use to our advantage. But when we don't know how to use them to our advantage, ADD can be used to hyper focus and to do incredible work. But if you don't know how to harness that talent, you're all over the place. And cannabis and these other entheogens and like psilocybin, these other medicines that do something with the brain and the human experience, whether you're looking at an entheogen as a God experience or you're looking at it as some deeper consciousness experience, they can help you manage symptoms and unpack problems, but they do not cure in the way that they can prevent. Like, we're noticing cannabis can help in reducing cancer. It can help in cancer prevention. It's helping to mitigate all of these other symptoms. But when it comes to certain mental health disorders, you still have to do the work on top of it. You can't just consume and not do the work. Just like
know what, Shaun, you're so right, because there's no cure for crazy.
You got to talk through it, America. And they are finding, though, like psilocybin experiences, they were finding where they tried to pharmaceuticalize it and put people in a hospital setting with the psilocybin dose, the lights, all the things.
We covered a story yesterday where they're talking about doing group therapies with psilocybin treatments. Group therapies.
Way better. So before, they were trying to do these clinical experiences and they were finding that it was not having an effect. Psilocybin in a group setting, you guys have heard me talk about Myco Meditations before. I've worked with them. I'm not currently working with them. No one's paying me to say this. Myco Meditations they are a psilocybin retreat experience in Jamaica. It is a little bit on the pricey side, ranging from like $13K to $15K when you go visit, but you go for a whole week. You're in Jamaica. They provide everything for you, the whole experience, but also they provide security. They do massive doses. Jamaica is a lot safer than people would assume, and they haven't had an issue with that, Jason. And that is actually something that they have to address. But they found that they get a lot of older Americans in their 50s and 60s coming for these experiences. You can look this up. They did, they were on, they have had a few interviews out there in the mainstream media. And they were featured on a podcast. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's got it's got a lot of folks out there explaining how this works. They do group sessions, and they also do mega doses of psilocybin because they have had a level of experience. They have physicians and therapists on site, but they do outdoor group experiences where you are one-on-one with your therapist and able to process and have your experience. But then when you come back to the group, what they're finding is with these psilocybin experiences, especially, there is something about the human connection and sharing and having that conversation and hearing someone else's story and resonating on their pain points. And I know it sounds very esoteric and woo, but it does actually generate therapeutically better results, because we're humans, we're social creatures, we need that connection. And to Dale's earlier points, not to belabor, but I want to tell you why I told you the whole story, is pharmaceuticals and medicine. We chose a pathway with pharmaceuticals, and it wasn't nutrition, it wasn't preventative, it wasn't community, it was manufacturing and isolation. And we are living in the repercussions of that now, 100 years later. And I'm glad that they're figuring this out, and you brought up the group therapy, but there are always going to be, I'm worried that if the US as an entity could actually take a dose of psilocybin before it makes any big decisions, take a dose and unpack a few things, because we haven't gotten the full recipe right as far as capitalism and democracy. And we're still a very young nation when compared to the rest of the world. We can still figure this out, but only if we're willing to admit where maybe we made a few wrong turns. And I worry when we have folks who aren't willing to admit that they've made a few wrong turns and they are not gods. I worry when they are in control of these entheogenic medicines and they don't know exactly what they're doing. And it does give me Aldous Huxley, Brave New World vibes. Like it gives me the Soma vibe. Like, are they going to try to medicate and numb everybody out? Are we all going to be like on ketamine and losing our minds on X?
It's the zombie apocalypse, Shaun.
You can't.
It's the zombie apocalypse. They're making it happen.
I'm worried it's dystopic, and we could do a better job supervising ourselves. But
well, you're talking about the box we created for allopathic medicine that was in large part created along with pharmaceutical medicine after the Food and Drug and Cosmetics Act, came into being. And to try to get outside that box, right now, physicians, and I know a lot of them personally, I don't want to insult them, but they're a bunch of pussies. They are afraid to get out of the box. Okay? Well, we know some that will get out there, but I have been to a physician, and I've talked to many people who have, and you're having a rough stretch, or you're feeling sad, or, they'll throw prescription medicines at you. Okay. Oh, here, take some Prozac if you're feeling blue. Well, when you look at Prozac, for mild to moderate depression, is no better than a goddamn sugar pill. They'll shovel this shit at you all day long. My experience also with psilocybin microdosing is it's better than an antidepressant. Okay, now that doesn't mean it applies to everybody, but can we have some honest discussions? If you take a microdose of these hallucinogens, you're not going to lose your mind to jump out a window. That was the scare tactics we got. Stop it. Now, have people had bad trips? Yeah. As you increase the dose, yeah, you got to be careful. Molly and I have tried to hog-tie some people having bad acid trips when we were medical directors at like concerts and shit like that.
Yeah.
So you can get out of control, but drinking makes people, come on, we can have these same discussions about a lot of substances people take. I would like to see us get to the point where the average person has access to honest information. Hey, I'm having these problems. I go to my physician and he wants to give me a prescription, and I go do some logical thinking and some investigation myself and find out there are other things out there that don't kill you that people say seem to work, and I want to try them. We get to a point where that's not taboo and going to end you in jail. That's where we were with weed. We've come a long ways from there. I'm hoping that with hallucinogens, if you will, that the research from the 1950s and 60s can be dusted off, where we found out that this shit really works for depression. Okay, there are some conditions that stuff really works, and can we get therapists trained in this? Give you other microdoses. MDMA is one of the best things you can find to get. Like couple. I can't stand that bitch. I want to rip her face off. You take some ecstasy,
take some Molly, and all of a sudden, like, hey, lotion party. Yeah.
There are ways to do this that we lost track of over 100 years ago. And I think people are clamoring to be able to find out, how do we treat ourselves without having to go subject myself to an MRI so they can make money, to an X-ray here, to a blood test there. Oh, let's try this pill. Let's try that pill. It turns out none of that shit helps. Can we open our minds up a little bit and think outside the box? I'm just so irritated with the medical profession right now. And my career's been in medicine, defending them, been married to one for longer I can remember. They are afraid to get out of the box. And that's what we're facing. Because for Shaun and I, if I sat down with a veteran and says, man, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I remember, the IED went off over there in Baghdad and I fucking can't sleep. Okay, we'll try a couple of gummies, dude. That wasn't enough. Here, double the dose. Oh, I slept last night. Good. We're in a good place. What can we do now?
Yeah.
To take you someplace else and have honest discussions. People with the degrees that think they're all that in a bag of chips are afraid to do this. So we find people, and how do we train them? How do we get them to the point where people trust them? We just haven't gotten there yet. But I'm not afraid to have those discussions with people. I mean, I'm not going to facilitate people getting their hands on illegal drugs anymore. I learned my lesson about that. You got them, dude. Let's talk. Let's talk about what happened. Well, move you to a healthier place. Trying to get healthy is what we should all be trying to do. And the establishment has figured out how to make a shitload of money and only treat your symptoms and not necessarily make you healthy.
I'm with that, Dale. We all need to be healthier going into 2026, and it's a perfect time to transition into a healthier lifestyle. And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we're going to be right back.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Oh yeah, that'll be so awesome. It'll be so lit. Man, they'll have the best playlists in the Jets. Oh, and stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com. And please remember, make sure you subscribe to us on Rumble and X, because YouTube is an unstable platform, and if you ever can't find us here, you can always find us there.
Should smoke some pot.
The Control Tower from Highlyy Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highlyy Educated. No way. You know what I'm playing? You already know what my playlist would have. You know what I'm saying? Oh, man, Shaun, we're not even going to to go there.
We're going to have a great playlist. I should have never put this idea in your head.
Oh, it's so good. So good. I love this idea.
We should bring the audience in on it.
Oh, man.
I had a little naysayer moment off air. I said I am a little bit worried that they're going to give we used to prescribe amphetamines to our pilots back in the day and other things. And it is very like Brave New World. They're going to give I really think that because the military is so interested in MDMA to dose operators, including pilots.
I'm so for this.
This is my conspiracy theory submission for the day.
I'm so for this.
I don't engage in conspiracy theories often, but I could totally see them dosing pilots and military operators on MDMA, and because it'd be so lit. It speeds you up as an amphetamine, but also it's going to make you feel very Brave New Worldy about whatever they're going to ask you to do.
You'll be like, oh, yeah, this is great. Look at this. Look at all these things, buttons I can push. It'd be so lit.
No.
Yeah.
Push the red button. Pull the red handle.
I'm so for this, and I think the pilots would have the most lit playlists. Oh man, it would be so good. Oh man, I'm so for this. And on that note, we're gonna roll right into Miss Shaun Salvaje. She's a mom. That's why she's so sensitive sometimes.
That's why I'm trying to keep the military off of doses while we're in operation.
No way.
It's for after hours.
No way.
That's for after the mission's done.
Get them litty titty. I'm with it. And on that, she's also not just a mom, but she's also a veteran. And she is a mitigator who tries to handle things before Dale has to handle things. That's right. It is none other than Miss Shaun Salvaje.
I don't think it's going to be the fun MDMA experience you're thinking of, Jason. I think they're going to find a way to take the fun out of it.
Let me tell you something. I would put the fun in it, okay? I am
sure you would.
I'll be...
Yeah. Jason, we got to be careful, guys. No one give Jason any Molly.
Yeah.
He's going to try to fly a plane.
My
story today comes from the New York Times. This one, New York Times covering Oklahoma cannabis. Behind Oklahoma cannabis farms. And this is going to be a really interesting story. I do want to say we do have a very diverse audience, and this story is not intended to be xenophobic, but we do have to be mindful about actual adversaries and nations. We are a nation state as the union of states that we are, and there are other nation states in this world, and they don't always have our best interests at heart. And everybody wants to make a buck. So this story comes to you from the New York Times. Behind Oklahoma's cannabis farms, New Yorkers with ties to Beijing. In China, trafficking marijuana is punishable by death. But in the United States, it's become a lucrative sideline for some favored sons of the motherland. This story was written by 4 journalists. They've been working on this piece for quite some time, and they had a lot of really interesting insights to share. So I'm just going to go straight from the Times, and then we'll cut to the group to get everybody's perspective on this. The police found him in his bedroom in Edmond, Oklahoma, face down from a gunshot wound and still gripping the bloody kitchen knife he had used to try to defend himself. His name was Wang. His job was in cannabis, and he was a victim, investigators would say, of a robbery. One of many targeting the cash-heavy marijuana industry in Oklahoma in recent years. But his web of connections extended far beyond the prairies of suburban Oklahoma City to the boardrooms of Manhattan, where he was a protege of real estate mogul named John Lamb. Mr. Lamb had developed at least 50 projects in New York and had recently teamed up with the British billionaire Richard Branson to open a trendy hotel in Midtown Manhattan. He was a prominent fundraiser for Mayor Eric Adams. And he served as Jason's on that one. He also not a fan of Mayor Adams, so we agree on that one. Yes, Jason. And he had served as a top leader of a New York City Chinese heritage organization known among the diaspora as Hometown Association. It was one of a number of such groups that have maintained close ties to Beijing and have become useful tools of China's government to undermine politicians who oppose its authoritarian policies. The New York Times examination of the group's dealings found that nearly a dozen people connected with the hometown associations have tried to carve out lucrative sidelines on marijuana farms in America's heartland, where immigrant workers have often been treated like indentured servants and the true ownership of the operations have been obscured. Court records show that Mr. Lamb purchased the land and structures for Mr. Wang to operate a marijuana farm near Oklahoma City in 2021, although Mr. Lamb denied any involvement in its day-to-day operations. Times also identified 4 other leaders of New York City hometown associations who have financed or otherwise have connections to cannabis farms in Oklahoma. These include Mr. Wang, who helped helm the pro-Beijing Taishan Duhu Association of America, and whose killing in January 2025, along with court proceedings that followed it, offered a rare look at how the group's officials have sought to gain a foothold in a booming industry far from their New York headquarters. No law bars such investors from taking stakes in Oklahoma cannabis farms, but all operators must be 75% owned by Oklahoma residents, and operators must obtain a state license and local permits and fully disclose all ownership stakes in each farm. None of the marijuana produced on Oklahoma farms can legally be sold outside of the state. Even so, in 2023, Oklahoma's Attorney General estimated that 40% of the cannabis consumed in New York came from his state. All of the farms linked to the hometown associations are under investigation by the authorities in Oklahoma. Mr. Wang's operation was shut down in 2022 for operating without a license, but Mr. Wang continued to work in the business after that records show. The leader of hometown associations were among thousands of Chinese-born businessmen and workers who have flocked to the state to take advantage of cheap land in an industry, written law, unique in the United States that allows growers to plant unlimited amounts of cannabis, marijuana. Instead of revitalizing Oklahoma's rural economy, as many had hoped, through the law fed a thriving market for bootleg cannabis, where suppliers ignore laws banning marijuana trafficking, undercutting legitimate sellers, and skirting taxes and safety testing, officials say. Whether some of the Chinese-born businessmen have acted with tacit approval of the Chinese government remains an open question. Times found no evidence that Chinese officials were involved in operating or supporting marijuana farms, but as the Times reported in August, the Chinese government has treated the hometown association leaders as favorite sons of the motherland. At a hearing held by the House Homeland Security Committee in September, lawmakers from both parties suggested China is benefiting from marijuana industry investment by Chinese-born entrepreneurs, and they cast the farms as components of a broader criminal enterprise involving human smuggling, forced labor, and money laundering. Donnie Anderson, the director of Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Control, which has shut down hundreds of illegal marijuana farms, said in an interview that ethnic Chinese businessmen had been providing staggering amounts of cash to build industrial-sized farms all over the state. Mr. Anderson said most of the farms he had shut down were run by people of Chinese descent. One undeniable element of the boom had been the influx in recent years of Chinese immigrants from New York who are helping to power it, sometimes while working in appalling conditions. Of the nearly 2,500 active marijuana cultivation licenses issued by the state, at least 10% list addresses or phone numbers in one of New York City's 5 boroughs, primarily the neighborhoods of Sunset Park in Brooklyn and Flushing in Queens, a Times analysis showed. In interviews, marijuana industry entrepreneurs of Chinese descent say they abide by all state and federal laws, and some said they believe the authorities are targeting them out of racism. Not totally out of the question. They want all the Asian guys out, said one operator, Chen Zhang, 35, who owns 20 farms across the state. An illegal operation by any measure, John Lam is a powerful figure in New York's Chinese diaspora, the largest outside of East Asia. He served as the president of the Guangdong Association of America, one of the biggest and most pro-Beijing hometown associations in the city, as well as an advisor to affiliate of the United Front, an organ of the Chinese Communist Party that seeks to expand the party's influence at home and abroad. Mr. Wang, who worked for Mr. Lam's company, Lam Group, as head of the division that recruited investors in China, had also founded a hometown association representing people from his native Guangdong province. That group supports Chinese government policies such as the crackdown on Hong Kong's civil liberties. It also backed Mr. Adams' mayoral campaign in 2021. Now, I'm going to bring you towards the end of the story because it is a little bit of a read. It's about 16 minutes if you go all the way through. What they uncovered through the New York Times is that Mr. Lam's name eventually does appear on many of the records in Oklahoma once you start to trace the source. And it opens this conversation later on at the end of the article. You have to ask yourself, with all of the interstate traffic and rescheduling and this conversation around hemp, what is next when it comes to managing how we do this? Oklahoma, this is no surprise to anybody who's operating in Oklahoma or really in any of the states if you're really paying attention. And it's not just an issue that we face in cannabis. There are definitely some issues that we face with land being purchased. I mean, we had this issue come up in the Texas Ledge where we had a lot of rules about land being able to be purchased by governments or entities of governments we deem foreign adversaries, which is valid. And we can bring it back to the group as we wrap this up. That is a valid concern. At the same time, we have to balance the United States' propensity for xenophobic policies. We have to acknowledge these two realities can exist at once, that you do have people who are earnest and trying to do a good thing, and then you do have people who have interests in other countries that are not the United States, and they're trying to do the thing that most benefits them. That's a tale as old as time. What we are seeing, however, is the impacts on the industry, because when you have this large influx, and this isn't, I'm preaching to the choir here, especially our audience, you have this massive influx of dollars coming from funding that it doesn't come from cannabis. It's coming from outside of the industry, and we don't always know what those interests are. Helping to, Oklahoma was supposed to be at the beginning a real beacon of hope because it was going to be so open, and then it kind of turned into a little bit of an insane asylum. Like, for a while they were saying it was the Wild West, and then it got really crazy, and a lot of operators, because of the oversaturation, it just didn't end up working out as well as everyone predicted. And I wouldn't think that the attorney general, who's estimating 40% of the stock is going out of state, or 40% of New York's cannabis is from Oklahoma. Maybe not 40%, but I would imagine a good chunk.
Maybe 60. Maybe 60.
If it can't make it all the way from California. But this story is really worth a read for anyone in the industry. One, we want to be mindful of our own biases, and we want to make sure we're not being xenophobic. At the same time, I did work for DOD, and the reality is there are adversary states who do wish to do harm to the United States. That's not just a PR line. However, the United States has also been that actor for a lot of other countries.
Never.
And
Stop it. Stop the ridiculousness.
We got to get our shit together.
Stop it.
And that's why this kind of activity isn't surprising to see this kind of activity within the U.S. border, because this is the more kind of this is the kind of insurgency tactic that you can use legally within the U.S. border. I think anyone in the industry should read the article, but also take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, man.
Read it to understand a little bit better, because what we need to think ahead on, and I get it. Some folks you could see it as negative Nancy thing. What I've been told is there's some people who they like to dream big. They like to be the big idea person. And then there's a spectrum. You're on a spectrum. We all have it. And you can be in your big idea space, or you can be in your anticipation space. In anticipator mode, it helps you to see around the corners, so that way you can plan ahead for when you need to pivot. One thing the industry doesn't do enough of is thinking ahead as far as pushing interstate commerce and figuring out how we're going to do this as a nation. I get we're all really siloed and focused on our markets, and I am guilty as anyone. I have been on the Texas train all through 2025 because we had the ledge. It was really the only thing I could focus on. But we've got to get to a space where we start to think a little bit bigger. One thing, for whatever they want to say about those hometown associations, I will say there is a lot of power in finding communities that are willing to bond together and build something together, even if they're not related by blood. And figuring out a way to do that can be really powerful. And I will say, this is something that you've seen in this East Asian community in New York, which they say is the largest outside of Beijing. It's something that you see, in Latino communities. It's just a thing. We like to build with each other, build with the neighborhood, build with the community. And I think it was something that was very American until we went into this whole highly individualized capitalist space, which I think there's some merit to, but we need to remember there's always a bigger picture. I want to bring it back to you guys, because Oklahoma and the mega farms, Chinese influence, national security, it touches a lot of big issues in the US. And I'm curious, how can the industry do better? What can we actually do? There's going to be bad actors in every pocket. It's really sad that this story begins with this man face down in a pool of his own blood.
Well, Brian Dombrowski, first of all, there's the chat has been lit with tons of great, hilarious jokes going on in the chat, first of all. So let's just address a couple of those first. Brian Dombrowski in the chat, he says, hometown hero may want to change their name. Just saying. Just maybe they. And OG grandma in the chat, where did this one go? This was pretty funny. He said Wong Numba used to be in the San Francisco telephone book, and his address was on Geary Street, and an old man would answer the phone and say, Wong Numba here.
Oh my goodness, Jason. I bring you a New York Times story for us to analyze.
I'm about to go into that, but I couldn't help myself. Like our audience is hilarious, and I want to give them their props. You know what I'm saying? Because they are so funny.
You're right. We have to give the audience their credit.
We want to give them their love. You know what I'm saying? But in all seriousness, this Chinese epidemic problem is a big deal, because not only is it also bottoming the market out, but it is also providing a lot of information to the CCP, and that is a big problem. And we've watched this happen with a number of our different agricultural commodities throughout all of our food supply here in America. It's the whole reason that the U.S. is trying to repeal land purchases from Chinese nationals in regards with our agricultural space. You know, the price. I was doing some research with somebody with a buddy of mine on this the other day, and we were talking about the pork industry overall. And before China started coming in and buying up farmland, you know, the price of pork was like $2.60. And then basically what happened is they came in and they got all they started buying. They either bought these pork producers' farms, or they made them sign contracts to where they couldn't operate without them controlling their business entities. Basically, you know, like some of these cannabis management deals type of things. You know what I mean? To where they made it to where the price dropped to 60 cents. So then that way no small producers could even compete on a feasible viability level. And so this is a serious problem. And it's not just happening in the cannabis space, it's happening in all agricultural industries. And it's one of the reasons why it's a big part of our national security defense of eliminating any of these title purchases that Chinese nationals have been able to capture as far as within our farmland. It's a serious problem.
I think where we run into problems is that we can't just loop Americans of Chinese descent into this, and it does echo some of those. You know, I think of Dr. Miyabi Shields. Her family was interned in the Japanese camps, and I want us to be very smart about, yes, we have to acknowledge we do have an adversarial nation or frenemy nation.
I wouldn't call them a frenemy, but that's cute.
It's because we're codependent on each other, to be frank. We are in a bad relationship. We're codependent. But Dale, go ahead.
Yes, Dale, let's go for it.
I have seen Russians, Mexicans, the Chinese, the New York mob, okay? And we have these disclosure laws in California, but they bring in a straw man, okay? And they'll put someone there that smiles a lot, and the person behind him is controlling it. And that's how a lot of this weed leaks out, okay? And I mean, I've been in pissing matches when someone trying to tell me that someone was in a car accident and can't even speak their own name. They're the person we're going to be dealing with. No, who's behind you? Don't fucking with me. It's illegal to do this, but it happens. We've also seen in the illegal market here in California, Chinese in particular, they're enslaving people. They're bringing them into these grow houses. They take your passports. You have no right to leave.
Exactly.
And growing weed's much, for me, easier for me to swallow than some woman's flatback in a massage parlor. Okay, and she's a slave. I admit these are problems at a much higher level. Okay. We have several, you call them frenemies. The Russians and the Chinese have not been our friend for a very, very long time. And whether we can stand in the same space and not kill each other or not remains to be a question. But we have a lot of issues in this country right now that we need to address. And another question I still have, I don't think Rohrabacher, Farr, whatever the latest is, did it get renewed in this latest spending bill?
No, it was not renewed in the big beautiful bill, so that is not in place currently, Dale.
All of this stuff is a RICO violation.
Yeah.
All of it is. Okay. Now, they can choose to prosecute or not, even if you're doing it legally within a state under federal law, it's a RICO violation. Okay. So, I mean, this could be geared up in a lot of ways. In California, we've seen the Chinese and the Japanese, the Native Americans and Mexicans here being treated like shit. We've seen it. It's disgusting. We need to get beyond it. We didn't have slavery here in the state officially, but we treated these minorities, we took the country away from because there's gold here, and it was horrible. That does not justify treating people badly today. But if you're in this country, okay, and you're breaking our laws and you're not a full citizen, and you might be looking at what airline rates are to get back to where your home country is.
Oh, we'll subsidize that.
Yeah, if there's any involvement with a foreign nation in your RICO scheme here, that needs to be cut off.
Yep.
Now, I've also seen white boys do this, so I'm not trying to be xenophobic at all. I've had the biggest fights I've had are with white folks going, "Oh, we're going to have this person." Well, that person's not going to be who's managing it or who's running this or investing. What are you doing here? I don't want to be part of a straw man operation. I'm calling your ass out.
Yeah.
I butted heads with white boys doing that too. Well, I'm not saying that anybody's free from this, but if you step beyond this, I got a couple of knuckleheads who are driving a truckload of weed across the country. Well, I've got some grander scheme coming out of the diaspora group in New York that's funding these, and the illegal grows are going on, or they're sending it out of state illegally, and this is part of a bigger scheme. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with Tren de Aragua. I had a problem with the Mexicans growing up in our forests and leaving pesticides around down our streams. That's all not okay for me. And I don't know that we have a plan to address it. We're just knee-jerking right now. And if you happen to be a minority in this country, I think you need to have your radar on, your eyes open, your ears up right now, because they could be coming for you.
I will say I'm really glad, though, that it doesn't seem as though that the Chinese have got into the daycare business, at least yet. You know what I mean? They're just in the agriculture space. Just saying.
I don't know.
But Brian, hold on one second. Let me just read this chat, Shaun, and then we'll go right to you. Brian Dombrowski in the chat, he says, like I've said before, the OBBB has removed the state protections and funded ICE. The Glass House raid was nothing compared to what will come.
People lost their minds on Instagram when I mentioned ICE funding a few weeks ago, and it wasn't because I was trying to fearmonger. It was because
I want more ICE funding.
We couldn't disagree more. They received a budget unprecedented, much like Department of Defense's. Department of Defense works outside of the United States.
DOW.
And we're very, very, very. You have noticed, regardless of your opinions on Secretary Hegseth or others,
shout out to Pete.
General officers in the military take that oath very seriously to protect the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and have a very hard time. We cannot stomach being used against our own people. That is not what we're there for. ICE, however, is it's for immigrations, customs, and enforcement. I think their duties will expand, and part of why I mentioned it is because of this very issue. It is a national security issue. We are talking about land being bought, not just in the agriculture space, but also around military bases, and then we're talking about this entire market being used. Later, the story covers how the market can be used to launder money. It's like one of the easiest ways to facilitate it because the lax enforcement and ability to watch what producers are doing, and the straw man deal. Someone did take 1.5 million in this story for folks to use his farm, and they kept pretending he was the face of it all, and he was totally oblivious to what was going on. So, but all that to say is I want the United States to get to a place, I'm hoping at this level where we're having a federal conversation about marijuana, medical marijuana and rescheduling, and then also full spectrum hemp, that they will see. This is why I got on the hemp train, was because I knew we weren't going to get to marijuana. We weren't getting to cannabis and marijuana through Texas. It was going to have to come through hemp, and they needed different language because there's no way they're going to have the same policy as a bunch of blue states. There's just no way in hell.
Yeah.
And then the other thing,
that's right.
It's just syntax, guys. It really is. It's just language. And it's all cannabis. But my big concern, and what I really like to talk to the legislators about, is we need to figure this out, because if we collapse our market, we invite all of these other players to come and take it over. And I'm not just talking about our trap market, not the good trap, not the traditional operators who are your buddies. I'm talking about nefarious operators who would gladly put a bullet between your eyes. So we, as a nation, we need language. This is the origins of this. The United States needs to get a grip on its black market industries and how much our black market economy actually funds and how much it actually controls the world, because the other nations are also looking at that stuff. And let's not pretend that we don't know about it. We just need to get real serious and real honest and a bit more open about it. If we regulated this, we could help dominate and control this market. Yeah. And it would make me sleep. It would make me sleep a lot better at night. And maybe it's not the best line of thinking in a globalized society. But when it comes to a globalized world, I want to make sure what's happening in my space, on my territory, and in our backyards is managed by us, not someone else, because that becomes very dangerous really quickly. That's right. And that's why I thought it's important. But I think that you will see more enforcement from other agencies, including ICE. I'm not for it, because while you're going after these bad actors, you're going to catch a whole lot of innocent folks in the crosshairs, and that be fine. Concerns me. I really hope we can come up with a hemp program to keep it all going.
Don't worry, that's going to be the October surprise, Shaun. I promise. That's going to be the October surprise. And shout out to Anna Lewis. Oh, go ahead, Dale. Go ahead, and then I'm going to read one chat, and then we're going to move on.
We need to sit down in the room, get some pizza and some beer, both sides, and figure out a reasonable immigration plan. What's happened over the last, since Bush left office, has been incredibly stupid.
Yep.
My family was in agriculture after World War II. They had a maquiladora program where you brought them in, they went back home. We didn't have these kind of problems.
That's true.
So we tried to lock them out. And then, now what do we do with people who were here? It's hard to say that they're innocent from a legal standpoint. Because I was in Lompoc in the joint with a kid that came here. He was number 6 kid when he came across the border. All of his older brothers and sisters got immigration status. He was the last one. He gets pinched. And they were deporting him. He had a wife and 2 kids heading to college, and he was being sent to Mexico. And it's like, after he and I got done crying, it's like, I know what I'd be doing if I was you. I'm getting my ass back across that border. Okay. That's what I would do as a human being. And we don't have a realistic immigration program now that deals with human beings. But see, the problem is it's hard to trust them. What came in when Biden opened these gates? I was not in favor of that. What did we get? Well, we did, but how do you separate them? Because you're out there looking around. Everybody who's not documented is susceptible to deportation, which becomes hard for people with empathy to bear.
You're right. You're so right about that.
I'll help them ship your ass out of the country.
You know what?
I was in the joint with a few of those, and they needed to get out of the country.
You know what else?
We just need to find a way, if they're going to pursue that policy, it's got to be done humanely, and we are in some egregious
It seems pretty humane what I'm watching. Just
Jason,
saying,
it's not.
It is.
It's not.
It is. But nonetheless, we're not going to get in. We're not going to get into all that debate. I'm just going to finish.
Have to be worried and traveling with my passport because of
you're not going to have to worry about traveling with your passport, Shaun.
I do, though, Jason. I do, though.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You got a U.S. passport,
You're not going to
Shaun.
dictate my reality for me, sweetheart.
It's all right.
Not going to happen.
All right. And Anna Lewis in the chat, she says, "No fatties, Pete." Shout out to Pete. Yeah, he's putting everybody on an exercise program over there. I love it. I love it.
That man, did we see his pull-ups?
I'm so here for it. I'm so here for it. And on that, we're going to roll into our final commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Oh, man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
That's why we have to do it better.
I'm willing to bet it's gone way crazier than that, Shaun. But nonetheless, I have two final stories before we get out of here. And normally we do not cover opinion pieces on this show, but this one we're going to cover. And this one is we have lost someone from the cannabis space, and I feel like they have now partnered with Kevin Sabet, you guys. And it's yep.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Dale, I know. I saw the stank face, Dale. Here we go. Get ready. I ran High Times magazine, and cannabis reform needs safeguards, you guys. That's right. Like many Americans, I saw cannabis as a natural, safer than alcohol, and free of real downside. It wasn't until I stopped that I understood how deeply it had shaped my life. As the former chairman of High Times magazine, I spent decades immersed in cannabis culture. For 25 years, I also used cannabis every day. I built companies, ran media platforms, and helped shape conversations around marijuana. All while believing it was largely harmless. Like many Americans, I saw cannabis as natural, safer than alcohol, and free of real downside. It wasn't until I stopped that I understood how deeply it had shaped my life, and on December 18th, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order directing federal agencies to change longstanding cannabis policy, reclassifying it as a less dangerous substance. And in recent remarks, he emphasized the need to confront hard data, protect young people, and avoid repeating the public health mistakes made with other widely available substances. The framing deserves credit. It reflects a willingness to modernize policy while acknowledging that access without honesty can carry consequences. As the country re-examines federal cannabis restrictions, a long overdue conversation about reform is finally underway. I welcome it. Prohibition failed. Criminalization caused real harm. And despite some recent reporting questioning health benefits, I believe cannabis has legitimate medical uses that deserve serious research and responsible access. But there is something missing from much of the celebration, an honest conversation about addiction. Cannabis use disorder is real. It is a recognized clinical condition involving impaired control, tolerance, withdrawal symptoms, and continued use despite negative consequences. Recent studies showing rising rates of dependency, particularly with long-term and high-potency use, helped push this issue back into the national spotlight. And while many people use marijuana without developing problems, a meaningful minority do. Conversation must include benefits, problems of cannabis. I was one of them. For years, I would have described my cannabis use as manageable, even beneficial, and it helped me sleep. It reduced anxiety. It felt integrated into a daily life, and over time, however, it also dulled motivation, narrowed emotional range, and made it harder to engage fully with stress, conflict, and personal growth. That is what makes cannabis different from how it is often portrayed. Its risks are not always dramatic or immediate. They are subtle, cumulative, and easy to rationalize until they are not. Acknowledging those risks does not invalidate cannabis' potential benefits. It complicates the narrative that marijuana is universally benign. That nuance matters now more than ever, and the administration's decision to revisit outdated federal classification signals openness to evidence-based reform. But reform should not mean replacing one blind spot with another. Legal substances such as alcohol and prescription medications are widely available yet regulated, researched and accompanied by public health messaging because access carries risk, and cannabis deserves the same treatment, not stigma, but honesty. Cannabis reform should include those three things. If federal restrictions continue to ease, policymakers should pair reform with three priorities. 1. Expanded research. Decades of federal barriers limited rigorous study of cannabis long-term effects, mental health interactions, and addiction risk. Reclassification should unlock better science so consumers and physicians can make informed decisions. Invest in education and treatment. As access grows, so should resources for recognizing unhealthy use and helping those who want to stop. Addiction is not a moral failure, it's a health issue. And be transparent with consumers. Potency, frequency of use, and risk should be clearly communicated, especially to young adults and people with a history of substance use disorders. Some advocates worry that talking about addiction will slow reform or revive stigma, and in reality, the opposite is true. Reform built on denial is fragile, and reform built on honesty is durable. And after decades immersed in cannabis culture and years of daily use, I still support sensible reform. But I also know that pretending cannabis is risk-free leaves too many people without language, support, or care when use stops serving them. We can modernize cannabis policy without minimizing its risks, and we can tell the full story, not just the convenient part. Disclosure: in 2024, I pleaded guilty to conspiracy to tout securities. That experience reinforced my belief in accountability, transparency, and the importance of honest conversations, including about substances and behaviors that can quietly shape our lives. Wow. Adam Levin, the former CEO of High Times Cannabis. I cannot believe what the hell I just read.
Former.
Yeah, former.
I say former? And I recall a few years ago their assets were for sale.
Well, they went in a whole receivership, and that's how Josh from Raw purchased them and whatnot through that whole receivership process. But I'm willing to bet, Dale, that Adam Levin. Hold on, Sean. I'm willing to bet, Dale, that Adam Levin was forced to have to write this piece for the prohibitionists as part of his, settlement or deal-making process when he was punished for securities frauds from the SEC for all of those illegal, fraudulent things he was doing in regards with capital raising.
Well, it's like Galileo was forced to abjure. Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't really mean that. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't think any responsible people talking about cannabis are telling you it's benign. Mm-hmm. That's ludicrous. Mm-hmm. Okay. At this point, we are still working on what it actually cures, but it relieves symptoms on a whole lot of things. But if you're grandma and take your first, 50 milligram gummy, do not try to drive a car, okay? Because people can get under the influence of this stuff. Let's be honest about that. Mm-hmm. And I think we all agree that the limit should be 21, like with alcohol. And those are the kind of restrictions for a poisonous, addictive substance. It's very hard to stop. Alcohol. Mm-hmm. Tobacco, okay? These are poisonous, addictive substances, and we have ways to regulate them. And then we educate our children. And I think the education's working because teen use is down, okay? I mean, in the 70s, teen use was a lot higher, maybe twice and not more what it is right now. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So things like that do work. And, nothing surprises me when someone gets their ass in trouble, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, they change their mask and I'm something else. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly.
I have met people who told me they were addicted to marijuana. Mm-hmm. Okay, and none of them were out robbing houses and stealing copper or flatbacking to get some weed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so some of it is a matter of degree, but these are discussions that we have amongst ourselves because we're educated. I'd like to see honest, science-based discussions with practitioners about this so that we don't have to giggle. And, when he says stuff like this, it makes me kind of giggle.
Yeah, right.
Okay. They're addicted to spanking their monkey. Okay.
You know,
I mean, it's
at what
behavioral
point are we
addiction.
going to talk about what people do habitually that they have trouble stopping? Okay. Cannabis is not as, it's not as hard to get off of as nicotine, but easier than caffeine. Okay. Okay. Where are we going with this? It's not heroin or meth or things like that. You call it a soft drug, but I think we need to define that a little bit better and talk to our kids and society honestly. Because if you're an old fart like me and you can't sleep and someone says, hey, take a gummy, and you go, oh, I slept well, okay, does that mean you're going to become addicted to gummies?
Yep. And, on that, I have the actual release from the U.S. Attorney's Office in regards with Adam Levin. It says the founder and chairman of High Times Holding Corp., the company that publishes High Times magazine, has agreed to plead guilty to joining a criminal conspiracy to pay more than $150,000 in undisclosed compensation to an analyst for an investment newsletter that touted its stock and assisted High Times in raising at least $6 million. Adam Levin, 45, of Marina Del Rey, was charged last month with one count of conspiracy to tout securities for undisclosed compensation, and in a plea agreement filed on December 20th, Levin agreed to plead guilty to that felony offense. Levin was scheduled to appear in January 14th in the United States District Court to make his initial appearance in this case. And Levin is the fourth defendant to be charged in this scheme, in which the companies paid the analyst at Palm Beach Venture, an investment newsletter with subscribers nationwide, and that analyst, Jonathan William McCullough, along with his associate Christian Fernandez, who acted as a money launderer for the scheme, and Raj Berry, the CEO at a Beverly Hills company who brokered deals for undisclosed payments by other issuers, each receiving a portion of the payments. And McCullough, Fernandez, and Berry each pleaded guilty last year and are scheduled to be sentenced in July. And mind you, this thing came out back in January 10th of 2025 at the beginning of the year. So just to give you a timeline. So
with that's why I don't think it was actually part of a condition, because, and I'm so glad that you read that. I don't think it was a part of condition. I think shills are going to shill.
I think that's fair too, but me personally,
for medical capture, we're going to see this happen more. You're going to see more people come out who were part of the industry, or you thought they were your friend, and they're all going to be in favor of this medical reschedule capture because it gives them a ton of money as a limited license holder, and it screws all of you out, and they still have that lack of, humility, the hubris to think that they can capture an entire market and not fall into the trap. But okay.
I think it's part of his.
He's shilling.
I think it's part of his restitution, though, Shaun. I mean, if you think about it, when T.I. got caught gun trafficking and whatnot, and with a bunch of silencers, which carry a mandatory 5-year minimum, which they didn't give him, because usually when that happens, it's because people snitch and things like that. But also, as part of his restitution, is he had to do a whole host of different public service announcements talking about the dangers of guns and whatnot. And so I don't think I think that it makes total sense that the Justice Department would tell Adam Levin, since we're the former editor of High Times, we're going to use that platform, and you're going to have to put out some op-ed pieces as part of your thing, warning people about the dangers of marijuana.
Well, someone else owns High Times now, so I would be protecting my ownership of that. And I'm sure.
And this came out in the USA Today, by the way. This was
And you can speak to your personal experience. Go ahead, Dale.
Let's just be real here. This guy, when he got pinched, they made him stop smoking weed.
Yep, okay? Exactly.
If that's his come to Jesus moment, then okay, made me stop. Okay, the next thing happens is your attorney says, hey, if you come out smelling a little better in this pre-sentencing report, things like that, okay, then the judge is going to go easier on you.
Yep.
So he has an epiphany. And, I stopped smoking weed. So, man, I was addicted to weed and all this, bullshit.
Yep.
He did it because he was forced to.
Exactly.
And if he was to be released from custody and allowed to go out and do what he wanted to do, you think he would shy away from the cannabis industry?
Never. Not a chance.
It's 2 birds, 1 stone.
Exactly.
You got to make a statement and look like a good boy. And I want to get in bed with the other people who are down for defrauding investors.
He wants to get
Let
all
me get one of those limited licenses.
Get all cozy. Well, that was a fun. Oh, go ahead, Dale.
He wanted to just ride his beef. That's what I have a problem with. No, when you get pinched, you're going to be a rat. You're going to be a rat. You ride your beef. It doesn't always go the way you want it to.
Yep.
It's like I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody that weed was terrible. Fuck you. I told them it's worked very well. It's worked for thousands of years. You guys are full of shit. We just butted heads because they were full of shit. And you're going to throw me in prison anyway. Why would I agree with you? Fuck you and the horse that brought you in here.
I guess the moral of the story.
Well, because his was also financial fraud. It was investment security. It was investment.
Yeah, they were. There's the Ponzi scheme. You know what I'm saying?
It's a totally different fraud. It's not even about the cannabis. It's about
the SEC
you paid someone else to report news. This is the danger of mixing journalism and business, guys. You if you're going to take
it wasn't necessarily journalism, Shaun. It was this was a newsletter that they send out propping up their stock and encouraging all the people.
But propping up stocks under the guise of being under the High Times media umbrella and being news. Otherwise, you need to say this is editorialized stock advice. Like you need to own it when you're editorializing like we do. And if you don't want to do that, you need to do real journalism, and you can't defrauding the investors by report. That's serious. That's not just weed shit. They totally defrauded all these investors. That's bad.
They defrauded all these people that put into High Times. But nonetheless, I guess the moral of the story, Dale, is don't do any crime with Adam Levin, because odds are he's going to snitch on you.
The bus he'll go.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
And he'll release a PR statement while he's doing it too.
That's right. And on a final
it's addictive, don't use it.
Yeah, that's right. On a final story, so we can wrap this thing up and get out of here and everyone can get on with their New Year's celebrations. This is the last episode of 2025 for us, you guys. Man, and we're going to end it on a good story, I think. We'll see. With me, you know what I'm saying, Shaun? But they say that marijuana might be back on the Ohio ballots in 2026, you guys. That's right, because there's a push to get marijuana back on the ballot in 2026, but it's not to add any new laws to the books. It'll actually be a push to overturn some new regulations that the Ohio legislature and governor just put into law. Supporters of this plan say it's very simple. They want the will of the voters to be the law and not what politicians want. Ohio voters approved adult use cannabis back in 2023, but what voters approved isn't the law of the land, and changes late this year by legislators removed use of some hemp products and changed the number of plants people could grow. For example, in a quote, "What we have is politicians in Columbus who think they know better than the voters," said Dennis Willard with the Cannabis Petition Group. Willard is part of the group now collecting signatures for a November referendum to repeal parts of Senate Bill 56 that changed marijuana laws like the use of Michigan products and forbidding certain hemp products, which is this group says will hurt thousands of businesses and jobs. In a quote, "The voters are going to speak again, and they are going to say overwhelmingly no to Senate Bill 56, no to government overreach, and no to recriminalization of cannabis products," said Willard. As that petition drive continues and we wait to see if it makes it to the ballot, we do know that changes are coming to Michigan. It is now illegal for an Ohio resident to buy a product in Michigan and then use it in Ohio. It always has been, and you know what I'm saying? That's a federal law, and now they're trying to make it a state law too. It's total ridiculousness. And in a quote, "I think people will not only reject that, but will be angry about that," said Willard. And if all the signatures are collected before the March date when the new rules go into effect, then supporters believe that will put all those new rules on hold until that November vote results. This vote would not add any new language to state law, and it would simply ask voters if those want to keep those most recent changes to cannabis laws on the books, you guys. Well, shout out to these advocates in Ohio, you know what I'm saying? I think these guys are onto something. You know what I mean? Telling the legislature, hey, you can't just regulate my cannabis on me. You don't tread on me, you legislators. What do y'all got to say about this?
Well, democracy's messy.
Yeah.
And initiatives are pure democracy. And they're much like a plebiscite. It's a single issue you put before the voters, and you tell the legislature what you want them to do.
Yep.
The legislature tries to find ways to get around what you tell them to do. And that's going to be the battle. This is why it's on the ballot. We need to do it here in California too, because California has gone way beyond what I think the voters want to do. The initiative is something that I applaud. It's hard to do. Sometimes the legislators need to be told that, hey, we have something to say about this too, because we have republics everywhere. We put people there to vote, but sometimes they cut up so bad, like, nah, we are going to tell you what to do. And I'd like to read it to see what it actually says, but micromanaging legislation gets tough. But if they really screw this up and tell them, no, back up to this line, okay, for that.
Well, back that thing up, Nelly. You know what I'm saying? Any final thoughts on this, Shaun?
We'll see what happens. I feel like 2026. I'm super excited about the new year. I think it's going to be a lot less crazy than 2025. But I think everyone should be ready for everything to be up in the air and go in any direction, because if you haven't learned anything from this first year of this administration, just learn that they're game and they're down for just about anything.
Yeah, so, we are. Yeah, we're making America great again, Shaun.
Pay attention and show up. We have no idea how this is going to roll out, and what all of this will be subject to if the feds decide to redefine things, and then the states go back and want to redefine their things too, because they seem to love doing shit like that. It creates a lot of paperwork.
Definitions matter, Shaun. Definitions matter.
I just want to say, for the new year, Happy New Year to everybody. Love you all. For my final thoughts, thank you so much. It's really good to be back on the show. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me back in 2025. It's really good. And I'm excited for what High 9 has. And also, if you're in Texas, do show up to that DSHS hearing. You must register by January 7th. Please comment. It's happening January 9th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Flour is on the chopping block. We're about to lose if you lose flour, the trap is going to take over. So if you're selling gummies and beverages, you need to expand your market. Show up and testify. We'll talk offline. We need to at least delay the implementation of these rules. And that only happens if you show up, and we show up in mass. It can't just be a couple of us. The reason it worked during the legislature is because we were unstoppable and there till 3 a.m. in the morning. They realized they couldn't not hear us. And congratulations, Ohio, that you're allowed to put things on a ballot. Texas, we still don't have ballot initiatives. That's why, and we only meet with our ledge every 2 years. That's why it's so important to make sure you show up before the rules are made, before the ink is dry. And hopefully whatever rules they come up with, we can have an injunction and get us until we can figure out what Jason, I hope that you're right. I hope it's an October
Trust me, it's what
surprise.
I do. It's what I do all the time. Practice being right. This is one of my specialties, Shaun. Don't worry about it.
I'd love to have a little decision sooner than October. It would make folks feel a lot better, but I'm going to give you the final words. Happy New Year to everybody. I'm excited to see you next week in 2026 before our hearing.
Final thoughts, Dale.
Well, I've lived through some crazy years. This one was kind of crazy. We'll see. We've got a cycle coming up. You've been around politics, every other year the pendulum tends to swing around a bit. And we'll see what that means. As far as the cannabis thing goes, oh my God, there's no way this is going to be where it is today in a year. Something's going to have to change. I hope that we can get some people with their eyes open and their brains turned on to try and do this. And we're asking them to make a horse. Please don't give us a giraffe. Let's see if we can get this thing done right. And, I hope you have a wonderful New Year's, and let's go in hopeful that we're going to get some things done.
Fair enough. I'm with you, Dale. Happy New Year to everybody out there. We do appreciate you all, and thank you all for tuning in on a regular basis. We appreciate all of your support. And we're very much looking forward to what 2026 is going to bring us here at High 9 News and Cloud Media Partners and everyone associated. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great for you guys as well. And, we saw a lot of things exposed, and, Cat Williams, mentioned this at the beginning of January of 2025. He was mentioning how it was the year of the snake and how all things were going to get exposed this year, and we got a lot of things exposed this year. A lot of things, you know what I mean? A lot of things. And so we're going to see what happens as far as the closure of some of those exposures in 2026. And thank goodness we got President Donald J. Trump to get in there and get things done for us, because no one else is going to do it. You know what I mean? These other uniparty candidates and whatnot are just going to just be rowing the same ship in the same tide in the same direction constantly. And on that note, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media partners Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. Patented and trademarked. Happy New Year, guys.